Hey guys, welcome to another recap video. We're going to try and keep this pretty quick so we can get right into it and keep these recap videos as short as possible. So the recap video will be covering this AC unit as well as the kit that we built for these pipes and how I went about texturing those. But then all of the tips and tricks that come with this video are all going to be Substance Painter related. They're going to be things like making panel lines with filters and height maps. As well as painting height maps to add details like these to your already baked normal maps. And then we'll finish off with AO filters that you can generate AO from these, and anchors, what they are, how they work, and how they benefit you when you bake this type of information out and you need to use smart masks on that detail. Anyways, I'm almost out of air. Let's get into it. All right, so this recap's a little heavy, so I'm going to try and condense everything down as much as possible. So this recap kind of goes over the last 2 weeks, and in those last 2 weeks we were mainly focusing on texturing and painting height maps and getting normal information out of that. So just kind of go through that. So during those 2 weeks we textured this AC unit thing, and then we also textured we just finished texturing our pipe modular kit system here. So let me get Substance Painter up and we can look at the asset in here. So what I had actually started with, if we turn all these off, was just this model with no bakes, and then I baked out just the textures using the original model as itself. And you can see it a little bit here if I press B. There are some issues that I'm just ignoring because I don't see them in the final results, like these darker edges here, and I'm assuming that's edge weighting. I did end up buying Marmoset tool bag, so we'll probably start baking all of our maps through there and then bringing it into here. Yeah, so if I go back to this model here, we did a bunch of height map stamping down, you can see here, which we'll cover actually in the updates, or not the updates, our little tips in the rest of the video here, our little quick breakdowns. We did all that, and then I got AO on it and started plugging it into all of the other maps so that the wear and tear actually shows up in the painted masks, but is also looking at the height information that I'd painted down. So that's been pretty cool. Then I did a few custom hand-placed grime spots. I'm leaving a few areas for emissives that we'll probably use, like decals or alpha cutout emissive panels, so that we can get a little bit higher res information on that stuff. For the pipes are actually pretty cool. Let me actually go back to here and we'll go 3 meter pipe, and we'll look at this guy. So this is the old height information. So I painted all the height maps, and if I alt click on this mask, you can see the mask that I'm generating. So the idea is I just want the mask for where the rust is and the normal information that I paint down. So I'm only exporting out a grayscale mask for rust, and then the normal map of any normals that I paint. There's no baked normals in that sense, but painted normals are being exported out. And then if we go back into here, you can see the end result is here. I will probably go and make another recap video where I break down how I set up the shader for this. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to get into the nitty gritty of that. It's not perfect, but it's trial and error, and I've just been making it work as I go. So if we look at the pipe here, all I'm feeding it is this rust mask and the unique normal for the text that's on here. And the rest is being handled inside of this node, which is just a grouping of blending two other materials together, which is there's a rust material and then there's a metal material, which were created in Substance Designer, which was also on the stream. So I just created like a really basic rust material and roughness and normal for it, and then a normal albedo and roughness for this kind of painted metal. And then I'm using the, if I step back more, I'm using the mask here to control where this all occurs. So it's pretty light in this one. I mean, if I go all the way up, you can see it's like that's all the rust. And I'm not really using that much range. I probably could be in the height or in the mask. I could be having more grayscale information. That way I can shift around and really like cover it up with rust prior to it actually being 100% rust or 100% no rust. But yeah, so we set that up, and you can see it's on all of these. All these pieces have it, but they're also instanced. So if I really like crank the rust up on this one, oh, hang on here. If I crank the rust up on this one, I think it's individual per asset where like how far the rust goes. But once you're inside of this, everything in here is instanced or linked together. So any changes I take to the rust will affect the other pieces the same. I also, worth noting, there are two UV sets. UV set 1 is the bake, the 0 to 1 bake, which is not very optimal, but I YOLO'd it. And then the UV1 is a texture density, or texel density, I should say, for the textures that the mask is displaying, right? So these two are the same texel density, and because I'm using a 512 per meter texel density command, where's that at? Oh, I don't have it in my quick favorites. Oh, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that's not there. Anyways, I'll set the 512 per meter texel density in the second UV set. So each one of these is always the same resolution as far as these materials are concerned. So that's been really handy in making sure that the assets look the same when you get them next to each other. And you can see here, like all these pieces are just part of the same kit. And yeah, so that's what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Let's get on to the little tips and tricks and stuff like that. All right, this one should be pretty quick. This one's basically about making panels in Substance Painter, but using filters to create them. So I've brought this mesh in. This is just a mesh. There's no bakes on it. I mean, there are bakes, but I think they're just the generic maps. There's no normal information or anything like that. So I've got like a single layer that's empty. And it's important that it's empty because you want it to have no information, and then you're bringing information into it, right? So if I get a brush, I type in shape and I bring in this like shape brick, you'll see that it does a soft look. You can, if you hold down Control, and then if you move your mouse left and right, you're gonna scale. But if you hold down Control and right click and move your mouse up and down, you're going to tighten the shape up so it's more of like a sharp square. You can also see that in the settings for the brush. Where's that at? So alpha, and this is basically, we'll have parameters here, and you can see it here. If I move this around, you can see it tightening up as well. So you'll see that we get the shape, right? Like, that's cool. Now, some quick things to bring up. If you click here and then hold down Shift and Control and click again, you can draw a connection point between the two. Now you'll see that there's, I don't know if you'll be able to see it from here, but there's a little bit of a gradient happening here that's like in combination with like with the previous stamp. So there's some weird interpolation stuff happening, or like the way that it blends between the two. It's really subtle, but when you start using filters, you'll see the effects of it much more clear. So I'll show it both with it on and off, but you've got this advanced blending in your stamps blending modes, and just make sure it's lighten or maximum, and that should keep that pretty clean. If not, if you're still running into that problem, the other trick I would do is you click, right? And previous place where you finished your last stroke, if you hold down shift, that's the connection point, right? And then control to keep it straight. But if you undo, it's still the point, and then you can do a clean single swipe. So you could click, undo, and then hold down shift and control and then click, and you'll get the single action without having to worry about if there's interpolation between the two. Now let's go into the layer. I'll just throw this down here, and then we'll go into the layer and we'll add a where's it at? A filter. And then in the filters, you'll just look up out for mask outline is the filter. You click that, and you'll see that now you've got this panel line essentially. If I keep that on, let's erase this. Now, hang on. There we go. Erase that. So if we go down and hold down shift and click again, you can see there's a clean line there, right? So we've got the light and maximum on. If we go to normal and I undo this and I click and then hold down shift and click again, that's the interpolation being picked up in the filter. So you'll need to make sure you have this, or you're doing that other trick I was talking about. The only other thing to mention about this filter is if I put this down, you've got the panel line here, right? You can go into the filter, and now you have this like inside, outside, both. Let's say we do outside. You can change the width of it. You can blur it a little bit if you need to. You get some weird effects with that, so I don't usually suggest blurring it. Curve shape doesn't seem to be doing anything. Maybe it's when you're inside. Oh yeah, see, we've got an issue here too. So you're gonna definitely need to sit there and watch out for this type of stuff, but keep that in mind while you're building all of this, and you should be able to make some pretty nice panel lines in a clean way. The other thing to note is you can expand on it and still control all of this. It's really nice. It is really helping me with the panel lines that I'm doing on here. And the only other thing I would say, F5 and F6, you probably want to be doing orthographic when you start projecting this type of information down. Where am I at here? But yeah, be really careful, because you'll see some weird stuff going on. Like that angle one is because I'm projecting onto the tangent and it's wrapping. So if you do like UV, for example, it'll be looking at the UVs when it does it. So if I go up here, it could still be a little bit of an issue if the UVs are skewed. Just go to camera, because if you go orthographic and camera, you're basically projecting down perfectly all the time, right? Oh, see, now we're getting all this, some weird stuff, man. Anyways, play with those features. It's pretty cool. It's a little quirky sometimes, but it's useful. The next thing I wanted to cover is painting height information into a layer and then utilizing that to expand on your normal map information. So if I turn this on, you can see we've got panels here. It's more apparent in this view here. So all of this information has been drawn in Substance Painter with height information, right? So, and then turned into a normal map. I also have like a filter that's adding ambient occlusion to it, and I even have an anchor so that I can reference it later. We'll talk about anchors in the next part of this video. But I just wanted to quickly show you how I'm using it and how I've set it up. Alex Bidoz showed me how to do it this way. And so far I've really enjoyed being able to work this way, because there's a lot of details that you can add in a high poly, but just take a lot of time and preparation leading up to like getting your bakes and whatnot. So like details like this, I don't really want to sit there and make a high poly for that. I would much rather just paint some height information and have it interpreted on the asset in post or in the texturing phase. So let's delete all of these, and I'll just make a empty layer. We'll just call this like height info, right? And then I'll just right click on that and add a paint layer. Now you can do it with like normal stamps and or like painting in here and adjusting your height information. But I like the way that you can control this and you can visualize what you're doing a little bit more. If I press F6, we'll go into orthographic view, which is great when you're stamping stuff down. You want to make sure that it's nice and projected. So let's just go down and let's say we're going to paint height information in here, right? So when you press B or 1, you get your paintbrush, right? And you can paint down, and that's cool. Let me go in and make sure that this is a 1024. That's good. You can paint stuff down, and you can see that there's color, height, roughness, metal, and normal information going in. We just need height information. So if you just hold down Alt, you can click that, and it will just highlight that one. This is kind of a nice feature I found out about in a previous stream. So just Alt click height, and now you're going to be painting in height information. So if you need to, I usually try and find like a value that looks good for the depth you're going for. Let's go with the shape brick, which is the one I was using in the last portion of the video, and we'll tighten up the edges here. So you've got this shape, right? And the reason a lot of people want to paint in here, like make this a fill and then paint with a mask, is so that they can control the height in post. But I just like to dial in an amount. So like if I know 0 is flat, right? I can do like 0.25 for this shape here, and then I could go back to 0 and then paint again and remove that info, right? So that to me is really nice. If I want to go negative, I don't have to go negative very far in order to make sense out of like what is happening with the normal or the height information that's turned into a normal. So like this is up 0.025, right? Let me see here, or 0.25. So this is 0.25. This is 0. If I want to do like 0.25, but I want to go into this but stay above this, then I just need to make sure that I stay between 0 and 0.25. So if I go here, that's somewhere about the halfway point, right? And that's pretty handy. This brush is cool too, because it also has a control drag to make a shape. So if I click that or control right click drag down, I can soften it as well. So let's go even higher. Let's go 0.50. And then you've got your panel and your little inset detail. Let's do this. So if you do this and then you hold down shift and click over here, you can see the spacing is kind of weird. So I'm just going to like space it out a little bit more. It's just a test, right, to find the right spacing. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it here, undo, and then drop it down. So we've got the details that we're looking for, right? So now with people wanting to be able to have height control, right, you can add a levels, right? And you can go to and switch it to height and then move this around. Just remember, like, the info you painted here, right, is going to act funny. If you want to really pump it up, it's like, what is this going to be, 0.5? And then that'll be your normal information. But yeah, that's how I'm painting height info. If you go and have any like custom maps, you can get some really cool stuff going on when you're painting on this. So like do this one, for example, or this one, or this one, or like maybe you want to invert it, right? You just need to go to the height information and make it the other way, and you're good to go. Really, really easy. And there's a lot of control when it comes to being able to move this around. But yeah, painting height info. Enjoy. Okay, so now we're going to look at anchors. I'm just going to put some other info in here as well, but it's mainly going to be about anchors. So we have 2 different materials here. but they're not really interacting with any of the surfaces, right? And when you have like dirt and grime and stuff where you want the paint to chip away to show this, you can use smart masks to do it, right? Or just the masking tools that are in Substance Painter. But when you have painted height information, it's like, how do you use that to your advantage? And the answer is anchors. So first I'm going to go down and show you like where all this info is. So we've got the normals that are painted here via a height detail that I've painted in. I've got small details on one layer and then larger details on another. And it's just height info that I painted on these guys. So like if I wanted to, I could lower that info down. It should just, oh no, it doesn't. Oh, that's interesting. Huh, okay, well, I guess not. That looks like a bug actually. Anywho, so right now these details don't really pop, and it's going to be a little harder for us to work with. Same with the area up here. So I'm just going to go in and we're going to add a filter. And in the filter, I've already searched it, but normally you'll see U and then filter, and then you can type in HBAO, and you'll get this Matte Effects HBAO filter. So when you click that, put that on here, you'll see that some AO turned on, and there it is, right? If you don't see the ambient occlusion turn on, that means that you don't have an ambient occlusion channel to be painting in, right? Which is like a single channel here. It'll look like this. If you don't have that there, just go ahead and just add an ambient occlusion. That way it's making sure to display for you. And if you go and you click down here to ambient occlusion, you can see what's being generated from that filter. And then once you click the filter, you can actually control all types of info on there, like the radius of the AO and if there's a blur intensity to it. Yeah, and then also the height depth if you want it to really pop, right? So if we press M, we'll go back to this view. Maybe we'll give it a little boost here so we can see the details. The next thing you're going to want to do is the mainstay, which is the anchor points. So anchor points essentially allow you to have say a smart mask look at the information that you've painted in another layer. For example, the height info that's creating our little extra normal details down here, and like these details here and this and these guys, this is all painted in, right? So getting that to work, you have your painted layer, you right click on that and you go to add anchor. And the anchor will usually just be named default to whatever your layer was called. That's usually enough. You'll know what you're looking for when you get there. Now, the confusing part is okay, I've made this anchor point. How do I connect it, right? How do I connect it to the smart material? So we have a fill layer for where the paint is, and then a mask, right? And then we have this this mask builder here. If I alt click on here, you can see there's some stuff going on here, but it's not grabbing the details of non-baked information, the stuff that's being painted. So if you click on this mask, you'll actually see, so you've got your image inputs, but then you also have parameters, right? So in the parameters is where you control all of how much damage is happening or how much the mask is contributing to the actual removal of mask information. So if you scroll down, you'll see this little group called macro or micro details. So you open this, you'll see this will most likely be set to false. We painted height info, so you would just say true to micro height info. And if you shrink that down and then you go to image inputs, you can scroll down and then you can see that we've got a micro normal and a micro height. If you turn normal on, if you're painting normals, you would go this route with normals instead of height. We'll click this and do micro height. And when you go to anchor points, you'll see you've got your anchor point here. So if you click that, it should be referencing it, but there's one more step, which is, again, why this can be a little too confusing, is the reference channel that it should be looking at is not the base color for the anchor point, right? So you're telling it, yeah, look over here, look at this layer, but then it's looking at the base color. You want it to look at what you painted, which is the height information, right? So your reference channel should say height. So once you have that, now you're seeing more info coming in, right? Now, with that said, you have, where is it at here? This is another thing. Eventually, they're going to have search parameters here. It's going to be so much nicer. You'll just be able to type in like micro details, and it should just show up. That's my hope anyways. If you go into micro details, you can see you have control here now, individual of the filter itself, because maybe the filter the mask filter you already have going, sorry, not filter, the smart mask that you have going is already doing enough information, and this stuff is just too strong. You don't want to tone this stuff back just to get this working. So you have these individual controls here, in which case you can actually go in and change those as needed, right? So that's quite useful. And then if I press M here, you can see that we're now starting to get that type of detail coming through. And if I load up the original file with all of that stuff, all the layers not deleted, you can see what's happening with everything, right? So I've got some breakdown happening here. I've got AO in here. If I go down and just turn this off, where's it at? You can see all the AO that's happening. And if I go to the masks, so where's it at? Selective dirt. I have this dirt that's kind of going on around the area, right? But it's also paying attention to where the height information is. It's catching on the height detail that I painted. Same with this one, is even looking. This one's really useful because like if you break that, see if we just turn that off. I press M here. You can see the details here, right? But it's not hitting the same. When you turn that on, you really start to see like where the dirt is building up is even going around the details that you've painted prior. So hopefully that's really useful to everyone. Anchors are super powerful, and they're just not really utilized all that much or talked about. So this should really kind of open it up for everyone. Oh yeah, see? Oh, the paint just getting chipped away. Oh, so good. Storytelling with materials. Anyway, anchor points, use them. They're useful. All right, thanks for coming by another recap video. If you have any questions or requests, just drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.